Today we're reacting to Thomas and Friend Agnes in the middle. So let's get started, shall we?
Lucy, Jemima and Beatrice have been with her on the railway since the very start. Agnes in particular carries first-class passengers and would often look down on the others because of that, since they carry passengers who couldn't afford such luxury. She likes working with the Scarlowy engines, but she doesn't like working with two engines in particular due to their behavior.
Sir
One
Handel.
of these engines was Sir Handel.
And
Wake
Duncan.
up, you cattle trucks.
Duncan,
Sir Handel.
Duncan.
It's time for work. What a horrid engine, fumed the coaches.
Is Duncan the other one?
Sir Handel often called them names because they weren't like the smart express coaches he had hauled on the Mid-Sodor.
I guess the other one's Duncan.
But there was one engine she found worse than Sir Handel.
Yeah!
Oh, do be more civil with the coaches, you bronco, shouted Agnes. Oh, be quiet, Duncan barked back. Due to his work in a factory, Duncan would often be rough, and sometimes his language can be rather blue enough for the coaches to gasp at.
Yeah.
Duncan can be often at times rough in the yards, and he would treat coaches the same as if they were trucks. You should have treated a coach like me like that, criticized Agnes. I'm not no shoddy riff-raff things that you lot call trucks. I'm a first-class carriage, and I cannot be damaged for my passengers. I need to look smart. Duncan just rolled his eyes and gave Agnes a bump. Disgraceful behavior, she muttered crossly. No respect for a coach like me. Come on, shouted Duncan. He pulled the coaches out, giving them a jolt, and they all bumped into each other.
Why do these coaches remind me of Gordon? Just saying, they're reminding me of Gordon right now. They sound just as prideful as Gordon.
Oh, you careless engine, they all shouted. You shouldn't treat us ladies like this. But Duncan didn't care what they said.
Scratch that, not Gordon. Daisy. They sound like Daisy.
If you ever visit the island of Sodor and are interested in the stories from the various railways,
Oh, brother.
then you should visit
I like this
the
intro,
Railway
though.
Archives. It's a treasure trove of stories over the years with all of the engines across.
I'm going to be honest, if I found that library, if I lived in Sodor and I found that library, I would never leave. I would never, ever, 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 ever leave. Like, ever. I would never leave.
The island of Sodor, big or small. Let's take a look at all the stories that are a blast from the past for the engines of Sodor.
I honestly would never leave that library. That's a library I would never, ever leave. A library with just Thomas the Tank Engine books? Yeah, you're not going to see me leave. And I know I'm repeating myself, but I'm going to keep saying it. Because I would never leave. Ever! So what happened next?
Because of Duncan's roughhousing, the coaches were often very cross and would make the journey miserable for them. Awful engine, they twittered crossly. This would cause friction from the passengers, and they would often complain what a bad railway the Scarlowy is. This, of course, made Scarlowy worried. He tried speaking to Duncan about his mistreatment towards Agnes as well as the other coaches.
Obviously.
Agnes and the others need to be treated with kindness, he scolded him one night in the sheds. Kindness, pah, scoffed Duncan. She's nothing but an old bat. Don't say such a thing, Duncan,
I agree.
replied Scarlowy crossly. You're calling her that because you don't like her complaining, and that's because you treated her like she's a truck. You must know that if you treat coaches improperly, they would make an engine's journey miserable, and that would make us late, and the passengers would be cross with us, and would not return, and you know what would happen to us then? Duncan just hissed in crossly and puffed away. I got no time for your lectures, old man. I got rolling stock to shunt.
Obviously, take him off
The
passenger.
nerve of that engine, Scarlowy fumed.
I agree.
In the yards, Duncan was busy. He then saw Agnes sleeping in a nearby shed.
Oh, no.
Then the little tank engine had an
Oh,
idea.
no. Oh, no.
Duncan quietly cobbled up to Agnes
Oh, no. What is he going to do?
and then pulled her gently off the consist and shunted her in the siding out of the way. Then he puffed back and pulled Ruth and Lucy away from Jemima and Beatrice. After that, he placed Agnes near Jemima and then placed Ruth and Lucy closest to the open shed door. Perfect, he chuckled. That will teach an old bat she's not first class. And he puffed away to the sheds.
Duncan!
The next morning, Agnes woke up to the whiffing mixture smell of cheese and fish from Beatrice, the guard's man. Then she was surprised to see that she was coupled behind Ruth instead of seeing the view of the yards outside. "What in blazes is this?" she yelled. "I'm a first-class coach. I can't be placed in this position." But there was no time. Duncan came to collect her and the other coaches to the station, ready for Scarlowy's first train of the day. "I should have been treated like this," she said crossly. "I'm first class. I'm supposed to be up front, not near smelly old Beatrice."
Wow.
Scarlowy was coupled to the train, and as the passengers got in, he puffed away, while Agnes was still fuming about her position.
Please.
Who is responsible for this?
What do you think?
She then passed Duncan, who was sitting in the yard getting ready to shunt more trains for the day. Agnes could see that Duncan was smirking towards her, and then he laughed. "Oh, that Duncan!"
Are you surprised? Tell me
Throughout
she
the
gets
day,
revenge on
Agnes
him.
had been bitter about not being in front and took out her frustration on Duncan towards Scarlowy and the coaches. This, of course, got the passengers cross, and once again they'd been telling Scarlowy, his crew and station staff about their treatment and calling it a bad railway.
Duncan.
But later that afternoon, Agnes was bumping the train so hard that it resulted in a jolt that broke her coupling off of Ruth and derailed her. Scarlowy, the coaches, and the passengers were shocked. Luckily, no one was hurt. But Scarlowy was cross, and Agnes knew that she was in the wrong here. We'll carry...
Honestly, I feel like Agnes, it shouldn't matter to her. Like, I'm sorry, she sounds like Daisy. Like, Daisy was like this. But Agnes, honestly, she shouldn't care about what class she is. She should just care about getting the job done. And I'm sorry, I'm gonna bet that's kind of what's wrong with today, like, problem with the world. Like, some people, and this is true, there are actually some people out there who think that, yeah, they're first class, that they're better than everybody else. But I'm not saying this is everyone, but this shows like when they, like, even it shows, like, when you act like this, you better be ready to face the consequences.
On to the next station with Ruth and Lucy. "I'll call for help over there," said the driver. And so that's what they did. Back at the main station, Duncan's driver received the news about the derailment. Duncan was in a foul mood that afternoon. Earlier, he wanted a polish from Nancy after Scarlowy had received one before his afternoon train. But Nancy told him that she was to help with the refreshment lady by getting ices ready for the passengers. But she promised him a polish the next day. But Duncan thought it wasn't fair, as he felt he was overworked and underappreciated. And when he was told to take the workmen to deal with the derailment, he was still cross. "I'm overworked and I can't stand it," he complained.
I feel like Duncan and Agnes are both in the wrong.
Agnes thought it was hilarious that Duncan had come to rescue her. "Fancy, the engine who did this to me is now helping this poor old bat." But Duncan ignored her and positioned the train to lift them back onto the rails.
Agnes is still in the wrong.
Then he left the workmen and took the passengers in the rear coaches sulkily home. It took a while, but Agnes was finally placed back onto the rails, and Scarlowy came to take her home. He gave her a bump. "I deserve that," she sighed sadly.
do.
"So you should," scolded Scarlowy. "I understand that you weren't happy that Duncan had placed you near Beatrice, Jemima, and Lucy. But that doesn't mean you should take out your frustration towards me nor the other coaches, as well as our coal and water." "Coal and water? I'm not a truck," replied Agnes confusingly. "What I mean is that our coal and water are our passengers. Like bread and butter, they are the life of this railway, and without them, our railway would close. This almost happened to us when Radius was working on our line. Do you remember that?" "I do," sighed Agnes. "Oh, Scarlowy, I do apologize. While I appreciate that, I think you should apologize to our passengers for doing such a thing and treat them with respect. I might give Duncan a lesson about this too after today.
Honestly, I feel like Duncan and Agnes should apologize to each other.
Story. Meanwhile, at the sheds, the Thin Controller, Mr. Peter Sam, came towards Duncan and spoke to him
Mr. Peter
severely about
Sam!
today's events. You must know, Duncan.
Don't you mean Mr. Percival? Okay, now I'm confused. I didn't know there was a controller named Mr. Peter Sam, but okay.
Before it's too late, that no passengers means no polish. But Duncan, still sulking, muttered to himself, "No polish, no passengers," he said absently. He would soon eventually learn just how important passengers are from Scarlet's story about readiness the next day. Meanwhile, Agnes apologized to her passengers over her behavior the previous day and will soon live up to her promise. She still carries passengers who could afford first-class tickets, but she doesn't look down on them nor the other coaches anymore.
Good!
She still does to this very day.
Well, that's good at least. Well, that was a good episode. Anyways, guys, I'll see you on the next video. This is KBear101 signing out. Adios, everybody.